Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sworn Statement Podcast, a podcast by the Collier County Sheriff's Office under the direction of Sheriff Kevin Rambosk, where we explore public safety issues facing all of Southwest Florida. And today we're looking at a topic that maybe hasn't touched you yet, but it has the possibility of doing it. It is missing persons and all that Sheriff Rambosk and CCSO does to locate and find those people. And I have two guests with me today. I'll introduce right now. First, let's talk to Lieutenant Dale Deere of our Emergency Management Bureau. Lieutenant Deere, how are you?
Doing well, Adam. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you very much for coming. And you have served as incident commander on some of the bigger missing persons cases that we've had. And we'll get into explaining all that is here in a moment. And next, let's introduce Detective Sergeant James Kleinheinz of our Special Victims Unit. Sergeant, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Like he said, thank you for having us here this morning.
Well, I really appreciate you guys joining us again. It's a topic that we've seen a lot where someone goes missing. And I don't know that the general public knows all the links that we go to find every single missing persons that we can and that we never give up. But first, let's start at the beginning. Sergeant, if you could, explain to me just the process of a missing person.
In most cases, the call is going to come in from a member of the community, usually a family member or a caretaker, who's going to report a loved one missing. From there, our deputies from the Road Patrol Division will go meet with the call taker, get information, and begin a initial search. They will enter the individual into what we call teletype, and that is a information database where if that person has any contact with law enforcement, that officer will be updated and notified that that person is labeled as missing so they can be recovered immediately. They will be in an initial search of the area depending on the circumstances, and then we make a decision whether or not we need to contact the Special Victims Unit. Once the Special Victims Unit is contacted, we'll take over and begin assigning other assets as need be.
What is a special victim?
So special victims are a lot of times victims who can't or may not be able to help themselves. Young children, juveniles, the elderly. We work in cases of child abuse, child sexual abuse, and elderly abuse, along with sexual abuse to anyone. One of those categories that we also work in is we are the missing persons unit falls under the Special Victims Unit.
How do we decide, what assets get deployed and when? When does a missing person go from, we got a detective out searching to where we have all these different assets? How does that process work?
Yeah, that's a big conversation we have with units on scene. One of the first things we look at is, can technology help us? Do we utilize our real-time operations center, traffic cameras? If we're doing that, but it's not really leading us to an end, then we have to geographically look at the area and find out, okay, is this going to be a large-scale search and rescue event? As the incident expands with more people showing up, then we have to increase our incident command structure. So we develop into search groups, we develop into drone groups, intel gathering groups, investigative groups, and as the incident increases in time as well as size, geography, and the number of people responding, we just build out our search plan essentially to try to cover as quickly and as practically as possible.
And can you kind of go down the list? I know it's a lot, but some of the different bureaus and assets of the sheriff's office that we use, like what have you seen out on a scene or on a search?
Yeah, so this community has afforded us a lot of resources. So we thank them directly for that. Some of the most common resources that we utilize are drones, and Sergeant Kleinheinz is part of that group as well. He can speak to that. But the drones are fantastic because they don't require the same weathered patterns that maybe our aviation unit might, right? Where they can launch immediately. If they can see that there's an area that we can search aerially, but there might be some clouds or storms in the immediate area that might prevent our helicopter from launching, the drone can zip up really quick, provide us some aerial coverage thermally, as well as just a day camera. And we can track people as well. So if we find somebody in the woods and we can't quite get our units there, they could hover over top of that person and lead us right to them. So drones are a fantastic resource. Our real-time operations center is just absolutely phenomenal. The ability to have unified command, which is a very important thing, where we unify all the resources that respond from fire to EMS. We may have Florida Fish and Wildlife, the FWC folks, come and help us with the search. They have boats, they have swamp buggies, airboats, that sort of thing, and they're really great in the woods, right? They do a great job finding people and navigating woods. So we may team them up with some of our search parties internally
Tell me about how you determine that, because we got to find at least a general area where this person is at first before we deploy these assets.
Good old-fashioned police work. It starts at the scene of where the individual went missing. We begin door-to-door canvasses, knocking on doors, talking to people out walking their dogs, reviewing their Ring cameras if they give us access. We'll put out community blast pages, basically text messaging, using technology to send text messages to people in the area who may have seen that individual. We hand out flyers. We put out community-wide bolos on social media for individuals through our PIO. We start getting leads in. We get calls from the public that come in, and we take every call seriously. Every lead is looked at. And whether or not we think that lead is valid to begin with, we are still going to investigate it to find out if there's anything pertinent we can gather from the information given to us by the public or whoever sends the information in.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, both sides of the coin there. I mean, Lieutenant, you talked about just the fantastic technology we have that helps us find people. And then Sergeant, you talked about just the old-fashioned police work. It's still knocking on doors, talking to people, knowing your community, and we can do it all. But when it rises to that level, let's say you've narrowed down a place, someone's missing in the Everglades or even just in their neighborhood, Lieutenant Deere, tell me about incident command. You know, I mentioned that at the beginning. You have been incident commander on certain incidents. When is that deployed, and then what is your job out there when that happens?
Yeah, so we have a structure where anytime an incident is going to expand past what we call an operating period, and that could be 12-hour shift or 24-hour period. It really depends on how big the incident is and its location, like I said before. So when the incident command structure starts to overlay on an incident, we're going to have multiple units there. And all those units need coordination, right? They need objectives, they need leadership. And so the incident command, the incident management groups deploy with them once we get to a point where it is going to transition into another period.
Right.
So that's what our incident management teams do, is they come outside, they provide logistic support for refueling, getting resources there, four-wheelers, ATV, side-by-sides, you name it, resources there. Like I said, refueling stations. And then the first responders that are out there, I don't know if you've been outside in the summer in Florida, but it's not cool. All right, so these guys, they're wearing vests, they're wearing duty belts, they're wearing uniforms, they're out there doing the best they can in some of the worst conditions that you could think of, especially in the Everglades area when it's raining in the summer.
We've talked about this. We've done episodes on canine. They're out there searching in the swamp. Even marine, they're diving, they're looking for gators. I mean, South Florida is such a unique environment that makes our job challenging. That's why it's awesome that we do have such great equipment that the sheriff and the public have supplied us with. Let's go back to you, Sergeant. How are drones used to find missing persons?
Drones have really become essential in the search for missing persons, especially when we have someone who may have just walked away from the home and is wandering. We have had many cases where our drones have located that individual safely and sometimes in dire circumstances where they're unable to help themselves. We have, as mentioned, we have thermal and infrared cameras on the drones. So we can see, so we can see body heat.
Yeah.
Another cool thing they can do is they can go under treetops, right? They can go into confined spaces and search where potentially it could be hazardous for a first responder. The drone can zip through there and take a quick peek on it and then launch again to somewhere else. So very versatile. We
also have the ability for our drones to stream. We live stream our drones to our real-time operations center. So we have other eyes on that screen, whereas as a drone pilot, I'm looking at a screen that's the size of a smartphone.
Right.
Where they're looking at a screen the size of an entire room when they're reviewing this. So the real-time operations center may see things on that screen that I, as a drone pilot, do not see. And they can help us locate those individuals.
And can you talk about the ease of getting these up? Because like you said, Lieutenant, sometimes we have a great helicopter with great technology.
It's a fantastic piece
Sometimes
of
it can't be launched. It can't go some places, but this drone can be up in minutes. I've seen you be out there. You just pop open a case and deploy it, right?
Yes. Our drones are all quick deploy. We can have them up within a minute of getting on scene usually.
Wow. Lieutenant, tell us just about the process of keeping the search going. Just when do you know when to remove the assets? Obviously, when we find a person, that's the ultimate outcome we want. But there's got to be a time when we can't have all these deputies out there in the swamp looking anymore. Just how does that conversation work?
Yeah, so that's not a hard line, definitive, hourly or whatever. What we do is we try to exhaust every lead possible. We don't look at it like just somebody went missing, it's a call, we'll pick it up, and then when I get tired, I get to go home, right? Right. And I speak for everyone at the sheriff's office, not just myself. We will go to the bitter end to try to find somebody. So it's important that people understand that and know that resources are being deployed in unbelievable numbers to find somebody. And the heart that our first responders and heroes are out there, fire, EMS, law enforcement, they're taking it to the very bitter end.
We never close a missing persons case until we have a resolution. Those cases remain open, and the investigators in the missing persons unit continue to look for more leads. They continue to reach out to the family. They continue to do this until we have a conclusion.
Yeah, even though we may break down a scene in our MROC, our mobile real-time operations center, may have to come back to or go to another scene, we still have detectives like yourself out there searching, which leads me to a question. We talked about it.
Let
Go
me
ahead,
jump
sir.
in real quick. Last thing I wanted to say is going along with what Sarge is talking about the case just ongoing. Even though we may not be boots on the ground searching, continue. We do have additional resources that one of them being the community emergency response team, which is folks that live within a community or county-wide who will put in volunteer efforts to go to door, do additional back follow-ups on cases, and sometimes people in communities know more than anybody else does.
That's right.
They know the secrets behind stuff that they don't want to kind of tell or whatever, and so that helps us tremendously sometimes after the fact.
We have all this technology. We've talked about it. We've gone over all the things we can do.
Explain to us the case of Margaret Galloway. We did an entire podcast on it when it happened, but it's one of those cases where you didn't give up. You were still out there knocking on doors, even though it seemed it'd been 6 days since she had gone missing.
6 days, yes. And I was there when we located her, but it was really one of the detectives in the Special Victims Unit and our investigator for our missing persons investigator. They wanted to go out on their days off and continue. They were not ready to give up. So the three of us went out and continued to knock on doors. And one of the detectives was finally able to find a Ring video, and he asked to look at it, and everybody had said there was nothing on it, but he just found one little frame because it was taking snapshots of the area right across the street. And he found one frame where a garage door was open and there was a white speck. I mean, it quite literally was a white speck, looked like lint on the screen. And the next frame, the garage door was closed. So we spent a lot of time researching the house, trying to find family who may know how to get into that residence, getting permission to get into that residence finally. And hours after that, we're still on scene trying to get that. We finally get that information. We're able to get into the house and locate her in the garage.
And it just, every avenue that we were going to search was just drawing blanks, right? It was coming up negative and everything. So these detectives said, okay, let's reset here. Let's recharge. Let's look at the data because something was missed potentially. We don't know, right? And so they looked through it and they found a little bit, the energy that they put into, the effort and energy they put into rehabbing through all the data. It was just incredible that it worked out that way. And the other thing is, sometimes folks looking at it from an outside perspective think, man, why don't you just go in the garage? You knew she was in there.
Right, you're the police. Just do it.
Just do it. Why can't you do it? Well, everyone has protections, and we will never violate those. So sometimes there's maybe a delay in getting it done, but just understand that there's a whole process we got to go behind the scenes that no one sees.
We take approximately over 400 missing persons calls a year as a Special Victims Unit. And there are a lot of things that can be done by the family to help and prevent this from happening. When they actually start, when the person actually goes missing, having cameras around the residence gives us a real-time look at what that individual is wearing when they went missing, what time they actually went missing, what clothes they were wearing when they went missing, and what direction they went when they were missing. So that really helps us in our search because we can immediately get those photos out through our real-time operations center and our dispatch center to phones and computers to everybody involved in the case. Another asset we offer is our victim advocates. Family members who have someone who is elderly and suffering from, issues such as dementia can contact our victim advocates. They can get entered into a program called CARE, and that gives us a lot of information on that individual right away that we can access in the event of that individual goes missing. So that's a great resource we also offer the community.
Yeah, absolutely. All great tips. And if you are someone who has a family member that is either elderly, even some special needs children, we've seen go missing, special needs adults as a tendency could maybe wander away. Let's take advantage of those resources. So great mention of those. You mentioned to me before we started just a very cool case that you were able to kind of dig in and find a lady who I believe was also elderly well, tell me, I don't want to spoil where you found her, but tell me about the case you wanted to talk about.
So we had one night, it was about 11 o'clock in the evening. Myself and another sergeant were working in the Special Victims Unit, and we got a call of a missing persons. Elderly woman with dementia had gone missing. So we started looking into the case, started using things like, she said she'd gone in her car. The husband had said she had left in her car. So we started using our ROC to the Real-Time Operations Center to start looking at traffic cameras, start looking at license plate readers, and we located her car going across Alligator Alley towards the East Coast. I got the husband to get me credit card records, and we saw that the card had just been used to purchase an airline ticket. I then contacted Miami International Airport Police, and they began to look for her vehicle and they found her vehicle in the parking lot of the Miami International Airport. And it was she was trying to fly to her childhood home.
Yeah.
And, it's very simple. The first tenet of our mission statement is to preserve and protect the lives of our citizens. And Sheriff Rambosk takes that very seriously. And so do our deputies and our civilians that work here. They take a lot of these cases very personally. Everyone can relate. Yeah. I've had cases where I can relate to an individual who is missing, and I can relate to that family member, and you put yourself in their shoes, and you don't want to end for them. You want to continue, and that's what gives us that drive.
Yeah. One of the things I've heard before and this comes from maybe community members who don't understand our mission, right? I've heard before, like, man, you guys are using a lot of resources here, right? What do you guys?
Yep.
Sometimes very negative, like, what are you doing? What do you guys think you're doing? Understand that the community has afforded the sheriff and us to utilize these resources. They have provided us with this life-saving equipment, and if we're not going to use it, what are we doing, right? And so each resource has its own benefit.
Yeah, I love what you said, that we have all these resources for a reason. That's what they're here for, to do this. And Sergeant, as you mentioned, our mission statement, the sheriff's job is to protect the lives. That's the first thing of every single person in the county. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do until we can't anymore. So this has been very enlightening. I really appreciate you guys coming in here to talk about this. Anything else you guys want to add as we wrap up?
I would just like to, again, thank our community. They have helped us tremendously in these cases. And I want to reiterate, let's keep that relationship going.
Again, thank you guys for joining us, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time on Sworn Statement. And for all you viewers here watching on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. We'll be posting all episodes this season, so keep coming back.